Tonight is a sad night here in Cleveland as we prepare to say goodbye to longtime Cleveland favorite Lolly the Trolley.
Tomorrow morning, the fleet of Lolly the Trolleys will make their way to Florida, permanently ending the tours here in town. Our Mike Polk shares his take on what the trolleys have meant to the city.
And how things have changed since they first drove Northeast Ohio streets nearly 40 years ago.
When you talk about Lolly the Trolley to me, you do so with respect. You see, it's easy for someone to look at Cleveland as it is today and say, I'd like to start a small business that appeals to sightseeing Clevelanders and tourists. It makes sense to say that now because these days our downtown is quite vibrant. Residency is up, there are new restaurants and businesses opening every month, and for the most part, the place just looks really nice. However, if you said you wanted to open a tourism-based business in Cleveland in 1985, that was quite different, and your friends might start to worry about you. The 80s were a particularly rough time for Cleveland. The collapse of the railroad and steel industries ravaged our economy, and between 1970 and 1985, Cleveland lost nearly a third of its population and, consequently, its tax base. Much of downtown was abandoned and left in disrepair. It takes a special kind of Cleveland optimism to observe those conditions and say, this seems like a great time to start offering sightseeing trolley rides around town. But that's just what Cheryl Paul Witt and her partner Peter Paul decided to do. Despite the odds, they got their business up and running and before long became an iconic part of the Cleveland experience. It's not difficult to understand why. The sheer audacity of their existence in the 80s was inspiring. While most people were disparaging the city and lamenting how far it had fallen, the idea that someone considered Cleveland not only worth investing in but actually showcasing was heartwarming during those gloomy days when civic pride was in short supply. When the Lolly Trolleys took to the dreary Cleveland streets in 1985, they were cheery, bright red ambassadors rolling defiantly through what could often look like an abandoned ghost town. You may have heard the term whistling past the graveyard. Well, Lolly gave tours through the graveyard while driving straight through it. The trolley guides proudly showed off their genuine gritty town to thousands of riders and preached the gospel of Cleveland to anyone who got on board. They did so long before it was cool to think Cleveland was cool, and more than 2 decades before we all started wearing t-shirts that confirm that we like living here. So by all means, young Clevelanders, enjoy your revived downtown and all the features it has to offer. Hop on your rentable e-scooters and roll over to the Rock Hall or whichever Cleveland script sign offers you the best natural lighting for your selfies. Or hail a party barge and cruise to one of the countless craft breweries that have sprung up so recently. But just remember that Lolly got here first, when the streets weren't quite this clean. A very happy retirement to Lolly and her keepers. Thanks for giving Cleveland a lift when we needed it most. This is Mike Polk for 3 News.